So, namaste. There's not anybody online yet except Akanksha and me, who's my colleague and partner in Journey to Selfhood in January this year. And she's the reason why we've had this call. And so, thank you, Akanksha, for that. Um, so, I'm going to go ahead and start because I am recording this session, and then it can be available for everybody later on the channel, and I do want to keep the time going, so when people join, if they can just introduce themselves, and Akanksha's there to support and help in the chat. Okay, so my name is Sonal Kothari, and I'm a parent coach and a psychotherapist, among many other roles that I hold. My children are older now, 18 and 13, and they unschool. So when Akanksha and I started talking, and we were talking about how these jokes were coming around about parents and how they were struggling at home with their children and this unexpected break, and you can't go outside, and you can't meet friends, and you can't go on holiday, and so avenues are closed for socialization and exploration, and you're at home all the time. And there were two kinds of responses that Akanksha was hearing from her friends who were parents. And one of them was, oh, this is great. I'm really enjoying having the kids home. And the other one was, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? This is too hard. How do I entertain them, etc. I fall into the first category, so I love having my kids at home, and we've been doing this for a long time because, like I said, we unschool, so we're at home a lot. And so for us, the routines hadn't changed much. So what I'm hoping to do over the next half an hour is to offer different kinds of options and things that have worked for my family, and hopefully that will stimulate you into thinking about what could work for you. And also, like, I was kind of hoping that with more people on the chat, there would be some kind of a conversation, and so it will stimulate your curiosity, your joy, give you ideas, I was hoping that you'd all feel supported in that, and that some kind of energy and a movement would have happened. So we'll see how that part goes, but yeah. Is there anything else? Yeah, so one of the main things I do as a parent coach is I facilitate a program called Parent Effectiveness Training. This is the book. It's my very dog-eared book from 2004. I've had this book. It's kind of like my Bible. Read it several times. And so I teach this parenting program. It's a skills-based communication program for parents. And it's very powerful. It's been around for many years, 60 plus years. Over 1.5 million parents I've lost track even, like, have been trained worldwide in so many countries. The book's been translated, and it's still going very strong because pretty much communication is the lifeblood of parenting. So with respect to this particular topic for today, like parenting with this crisis, COVID crisis, and this isolation that you and your families are probably experiencing, there was two ways I could go. One was to deal with the being part, our being, and that of our child, and the other was the kind of like more like the doing strategies and techniques and little things you can do to make sure the day goes more smoothly for you and your children. So I've kind of focused on the second aspect for today. Yeah, and there's more information on my website, www.journeytoselfhood.com, and on the Facebook page, J2 S Parenting. That's on Facebook, and I post like comments and material there that you can check out. Okay, I see we've been joined by a few people. If you can just introduce yourselves, please. I'm just going to check. I can't see who's participating for some reason. So if you're here, will you please just say hello, wave, name, and if you can just share a little bit about, oh, Kakuli, hi. I'm glad you could make it. So if you could just share with everybody, like how many children you have, the ages, just to give us a sense of which age group we'll be talking to for the parents. Okay. So, like I said, I'm hoping that the first half of the conversation will be me just giving prompts out and sharing from my experiences as a parent, homeschooling and unschooling two children. When they started, they were much younger. We've been homeschooling, unschooling for more than 6.5 years now. Yeah, and then hoping that this will be a jump start or a launching pad for you to explore and yeah, get creative and find your joy in this situation and find support for yourself as well. Okay, so let me start with the first topic. So routines provide structure and sanity. So what usually happens when it's a holiday time, especially this kind of extended time, like we don't know when we're going to go back, etc., sometimes the tendency is to let bedtime slide, or for the children to stay up a little bit later, or meals not happening on time, and then or we're having meals that are not entirely healthy. Maybe we've had breakfast that's something fun and exciting, but not necessarily having your veggies and fruits, and then lunch happens that way, or it's a little off on the timing, and then we skip maybe snack, and it's a lot of work for the mother, especially if you don't have support at home. So I can understand why it happens. But when routines slide, then after 2-3 days, everything becomes a turmoil. Because if you're having the children waking up later, or children waking up at different times, if you have more than one child, and then breakfast is served at different times for different people have to wait, or the kitchen's not tidied up, and it can get really challenging very, very quickly. So one of the things to do is to keep at least the meal times and bedtime the same as regular times. Not to say that you have to be so rigid about it. So one day, one off thing, like, okay, so today we'll sleep a little later, etc. But to kind of have a rhythm going. So the rhythm is really important. Okay. Point number 2. Yeah, so Akanksha's put in the question that goes with that topic, which is what routines do you find useful, and where do you struggle with routines? So if you want to type that in the chat box, that will be great. Okay. So you are the most important person in your child's life, right? So this basically means self-care. So if you are the most important person in your child's life and you're holding down the fort, you're the hub, the center around which the family, I'm guessing a lot more moms come on here, but even for dads, then self-care is really important during this time. So if you're tired, or if you've skipped a meal, or you haven't slept very well, or you haven't had time to yourself during this time, then you can get cranky and irritable, right? So if I'm not feeling okay, if my inner child's needs are not satisfied, and we all know how that looks like, right? So when I raise my voice, and I'm speaking at the children, and I'm screaming, I'm saying things that I know that afterwards I will feel bad about, I'm pretty much in what we call the reaction zone. And that's when I know that something within me, some need of mine, is not being satisfied. Either I'm feeling very stretched for time, energy, effort, or I'm feeling like I'm doing so much and nothing is coming back. So I'm calling the children for dinner and they're just not coming. Or I'm asking them to go to bed or get off the iPad, or something like that's happening. And they're not listening, and I'm feeling I don't know, I'm feeling like I'm not feeling respected, or something like that will be going on for me. And that's when you know that your inner child needs are not being met. So take care of yourself. So how you're going to do that is something I will talk about in the next few sections when we talk about managing time. So Kakali saying, I don't know if it's only for me, but have not been able to hear anything beyond the introduction of point 2. Oh. Akanksha, can you hear me? So quickly just checking on the video to see what's going on. So it's working on Akanksha's end, Kakuli, so I'm not sure. Thank you, Akanksha. So I'm going to continue. Kakuli, if you can hear me now, please just give me a thumbs up so that I know. Okay. So prevention is better than cure. So when the kids are at home all the time, it's really nice to let them know in advance what's going to happen next or what the expectations are. This applies for children who are very young and also for older children. So if you have a plan in mind for the day and you know what your day is going to be structured like, so do share it with the children. And in P.E.T, which is the program that I teach, Dr. Gordon's Parent Effectiveness Training, we talk about this a lot. It's called a preventive I message. So it's like things like lunch is going to be served in half an hour, or now it's 5 more minutes, please wind up, lunch is served. Other things like, I don't know, this afternoon we'll be baking, or let's see a movie tonight, or what do you suggest? So these are things that if you let the children know in advance what the day is like, then there's less trouble to be had if you suddenly spring things on them. Or even if the children make demands, or like, I want to have an ice cream right now, but there isn't ice cream at home and it's going to take time to come. So we'll say, okay, great, this is what you would like, and so let's put it on the list and let's see how we can do it tomorrow. So just having open and free-flowing communication between you and the family around expectations, around the plans for the day, no matter how young the child is, even if the child is 1.5 or 2, having this kind of communication about expectations and what to expect next and what the plan is, or planning together, these things create a sense of orientation towards what is going to happen. And when you're listening as well, when the child is responding and saying, no, not this, or can we do this instead, or how about this? And if you're accounting for that, then that onboards the child, right? So the child has an investment in the plan for the day. So the chances of you and your child cooperating on these things then becomes just great, or much smoother. So Kakali, yes, just to let you know, yes, we are recording this and it will be available on the YouTube channel later. So I'm sorry you're not able to see the video. Okay. Let's see. समय समय की बात है. So different kinds of time. So there's different types of time during the day, right? So there's my alone time, me time, and that's just not for me. The children also need maybe alone time, or time just by themselves to nap, or just to be, like daydream, or to sit with a book, or just lie down and just stare at the walls or whatever. Like, I remember doing that as a child. I see my children do this, and I see children who have unstructured time, or time in nature, sort of with trees and gardens. Often they're just being, and their mind's working, and they're processing different things and events, and they're doing their thing. And I wonder if all of you remember having done that as a child. So that's like me time, and it's kind of important. Then there is one-on-one time. So if you have one child, then your time with your child, your time with your spouse, also your time with, if you have more than one children, one-on-one time with each of your children, right? So it may not be possible for you to do this during the course of one day, to have one-on-one time with each of them every day, but that doesn't matter. So during over a period of 2-3 days, if you can have one-on-one time, or during the week one-on-one time with each of your children, that's really important. Then there's other kinds of time, right? There's activity time, and then there's the time where the whole family does things together. So that could be meal times, that could be watching a family movie, um, it could be doing an activity, a board game, um, doing a project around the house, some painting, or whatever it is. That's together time. And like I said, then there's quiet time. So if during the course of the day you give space for each of these times, the chances of there being a flow and a rhythm is great. So after a bit of activity, say for example, so maybe I'll talk about this when I talk about biorhythms, but each of these times has a certain significance. And if you incorporate them during the day, especially if you have younger children, that when the energy is really high and they're buzzing, and then after that they need quiet time. So then the rest of the day will go better if you've accounted for that and given into your routine space for that. Okay, the next point is Superwoman is a cartoon character. Okay, and that's just a reminder to all of us mothers especially, or whoever's the primary caregiver at home, that if during this time you feel like you're doing everything by yourself, you'll get stretched. And there are days, I mean, I've had those days where I feel like invincible and I've gotten a lot of stuff done and I feel really great. But it's really hard to upkeep that and maintain that every single day, day after day, especially if the children are at home and you're not getting enough of your me time or downtime, right? So delegate. So one of the ways to deal with this time is to have the children age appropriately contribute to different chores around the house. So it could be setting the table, it could be cutting the salad if the child is younger, even a 2-year-old, not with a very sharp knife, but there are knives available. You can check them out on Amazon for little children, right? So if you teach them how to do it, and if that's not comfortable for you, give them something else to do, to make the atta, or to wash the vegetables, or to just sit there and make a list, or make a menu card and draw, like, okay, dal is here, or some nameplates. There's lots of creative ways to involve the children in the process. So this makes it enjoyable for the child, for you, and there's an activity that you're doing together. There's a contribution that the child has, and it just I can remember plenty times when I did that with my 2-year-old, or like when my daughter was older and my son was little, where there's just like fun togetherness, laughing, joking, talking, doing things around the house. And it doesn't feel so burdensome when everybody's contributing, no matter how small or big it is, right? If you have older children, you can have them cook a meal maybe once a week or every other week, and it can be something simple. So the idea about Superwoman thing is like, don't hang on to the details, in the sense, don't insist that things be done a particular way. So learning to let go is part of recognizing that, they will contribute in their particular way at their level. If they're younger, it would maybe not be perfect, but that's fine. And to allow for that. How to get, so Ted explain Wilhelms, I hope I'm saying that correctly, how to get the kids to get things done on a daily basis. Okay, so usually, sort of in P.E.T, what we say is we would have a family meeting, and we talk about contributions, and we'd ask. So the way we've done it is like, we'll make a list of all the chores, and then if your children are older, which I know they slightly are, I would ask them to choose which chores they would like to do. So give them a preference, and then we'd contract around it. So what needs to be done, when, by whom, and if it's not done, then what would happen, right? So who would do it? Who would pick up the slack? Why is it not happening? So there'd be a conversation around all of this, and it's basically have a family meeting. And I think that most kids are happy to do that kind of contribution if the atmosphere is created where they feel like they're an equal party to that discussion. Don't hang on to, oh, so don't hang on to your ideas of perfection around how work needs to be done. So if the table needs to be set this particular way or the vegetables need to be chopped this way. So when the children are very little and they're cutting salad, like the cucumber will be one big piece and then one little piece and then like a sliced off piece and stuff like that. So don't hang on to that. Just allow and flow with that, because or if you've asked even your spouse to do something but they haven't done it perfectly the way you want it to be done, then there's agitation and discomfort, and I've often seen, and I've done it myself, where it's like, okay, chodo, like, you don't do it, I'll do it because I need it to be done this particular way. But when I do everything myself and I have it done this particular way, I end up doing so much. And at the end of a few days of doing it, or a week or 2 weeks of doing this, I will be cranky and irritable and I will feel bitter and I'll just be mean to the kids and to my husband if I continue doing it, because I've just taken on so much and I feel stretched, and it's not a good place for me, because I feel like I'm doing so much and everybody's not supporting me or helping me or contributing. And I'm wondering if all of you have. Hi, Suma. Okay, sorry to hear that people are having trouble with the video. Okay, so Akanksha says if you can try changing the video quality to the lowest uh, pixels or whatever they call it on your end, that might help. Akanksha, are you still able to hear me all right? Okay. So I'm hoping I finished the last point that I was speaking on. We're going to move on to the next one. So this one is, when in doubt, go back to the basics. So go back to the ABCs. So the basics are the basics, like, yeah, so nutrition and sleep and hydration and exercise, right, and quality relationship time. So if your child is, I'm going to use the word very carefully, if your child is upset or is having a bad day or having a bad afternoon or a bad hour or something like that, go back and check to see if the meal time was on time, or are they tired, or do they need a nap right now, or have they not been exercising. I just had a friend tell me that her teenage son is feeling out of sorts because he's not getting time to play sports, which he's into, right? So things like that will it's like, if you're used to playing a sport and being out there, then your body is going to need it, and when it doesn't get it, not 1 day, not 2 days, and you have to stay indoors for 3-4 days, then your body's going to start feeling the agitation. So go back to the basics, so then you can be creative, right? So can you spot jog? Can we all do it together? Can we do yoga in the morning? Can we go for a long walk when if it's okay for you to do that in your locality? Has the food been okay? Did we skip, especially for the younger children, if they've skipped a snack or they've had an unhealthy snack, sometimes that will upset them, and then they're irritable a little bit later in the day, right? So go back to the basics and see, have they slept, are they constipated, have they gone poo, very important, have they had quality relationship time, have you and your child connected once or twice during the day, right? It may be a few minutes, it may be just a cuddle or a hug for a young child, or just a check-in or a few minutes of sit down, but complete presence where you and your child have connected, and that itself sometimes calms them down. Okay. Kakali is having issues still. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure. This is our first YouTube live, so we're gonna see. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, lack of exercise and boredom is a big issue in these challenging times. Absolutely. Absolutely. though I have to say that it's okay for the kids to feel bored from time to time, and it's not our job to always entertain them. So I'll come to that point in a minute. So help your child to help themselves or herself, right? So again, as parents, we keep rescuing our children from the consequences of their actions, and we keep trying to rescue them from things that they can be creative about in solving their own issues and problems. So things, so it's really it behooves you to actually encourage your children to find out what it is that they're feeling. So the three questions towards that I ask is, what are you feeling? So I'm feeling bored, I'm feeling tired, I'm hungry, that's why I'm cranky or feeling irritable. So as you ask the questions, the children start to get in touch with their feelings. So that's the first step. What am I feeling, right? That gives me a clue to what's not right, or what's missing, or what's not fitting for me right now. Once I have the answer to that, okay, I'm bored, or I'm hungry, or I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling upset, or I'm angry. What do you need? That's the next question. It's like, what do you need? So I need something to do that's fun, and nothing here is fun. Okay, so all right, or I'm hungry. Okay, let's get you a snack because you missed snack, or you had dinner. We had lunch early, and so you're starting to make connections between what's happening to you, even for very young children. So I'm talking 2-year-olds, 1.5-year-olds, right? So making the connection between hunger and upset, or making the connection between I'm sleepy and tired now, and I need to rest and nap and quiet time, right? For an older child, making the connection between the fact that maybe they haven't exercised for a while, like it seems to be a big topic right now. So uh, yeah, and what can they do to alleviate that? So the next question is, what do you need? So I need to exercise, or I need to eat, or I need to find something fun to do. And how can you go about that, right? So what can you do to get this need met? Okay, maybe I can put on some music and dance, or I can do some jazzercise. I don't know. There's so many things on YouTube and online these days that you can put on something and exercise, or find some fun way to get your need met, or make a list of options of things you can do if you're bored, right? So I remember one time, a long time ago, my son was maybe 9 at that time, and we were trying to negotiate iPad time with him. And so what could he do instead? So some other questions you can ask is, what can you do when you're bored? What can you do when you're hungry? What can you do when you're feeling angry or frustrated? And for him, the boredom thing, we made a list of 36 different activities that he could do instead of the iPad, right? So now when he's bored, he has all these options available that him and I have sat and listed systematically, and been creative and fun about. So yeah, what do you need right now is a great question. And there's a really cute image that I've put on my Facebook page for those of you who are on it to check out. Okay. Okay, so follow your biorhythms, right? So if you're a morning person, so we talked about different kinds of activity time. So there's activity time that involves you and the children together. So you're maybe cooking together, or you're doing a project together, or a craft or something like that, right? So you are with your children at that time. So plan that time into the day. And then there'll be times when the children are doing something by themselves, and you're busy, but you're around, but you're busy. Like you're not available fully, but you're there. And then there's the third kind of time where the children are doing something completely independently, and you're not available, right? So during the day, if you kind of think a little bit about those times. So for example, and fit your biorhythm into that. So I'm a morning person, so I get up really early, and then in the morning I have a lot of energy. So that's a great time for me to do things with my family or with my children. But then as it gets to evening, by the time dinner's done, we have dinner early, so by 7:30 I'm starting to shut down. Akanksha and I were actually on a call like day before yesterday, and I'm talking to her, and literally at 8:30 I fell asleep on the call. and she's wondering where I went and what is an emergency, and she's trying to call me, and I'm just fast asleep. So that's not a good time for me to plan things with my children. So work with your biorhythms, right? So what's the time when it's great? So for just from everything that we've talked about, I just want to, so suppose you start in the morning, you have fixed times for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and in between times where maybe the morning time is activity time, then there's lunch, then there's maybe quiet time for the family, and then we're moving on to dinner, and then maybe at that time is the time to give them the gadget, right? At the end of the day, when you really don't have enough resources and you're falling asleep, at least for me, and be different for you, but that's maybe a good time for the gadget, right? So the other thing about gadgets is to really restrict gadget time. I've noticed, and I've spoken to lots of parents who've told me, and the research says so as well, that when the children have been on a gadget for an extended period of time over many, many days, like so for sort of the whole week, they've had like more than, say, 4 or 5 hours of gadget time, something changes in their behavior. It's almost like they're disconnected from themselves and they're disconnected from you. So they have memory, their memory is not that great over time, and they don't pay attention, they don't like to hear a no. Taking the gadget away becomes this battle. There's a lot of pushback, like, so simple things like coming for meals and things like that becomes problematic. They're irritable, they resist, they lack focus. I think the thing that's the most important though is the point about connection. It's like they're not connected with themselves. It just felt to me when my son was 9, and he were doing this experiment. It was like, there was some school of thought that says no, give them unlimited gadget time, and like, okay, TK, let's try this. And it almost felt like I'd lost my child. And at some point during that year that we were experimenting with this, my son at 9 years old came to me and said, I don't feel good. I don't feel good spending this much time on the gadget, and here, take it back, right? And so there was something that was off in how he felt about himself, how we were showing up in relationships. And almost overnight, once the gadget was gone, I felt like I had my son back, a sweet child who was like, just himself, clear-eyed, connecting, all of that stuff. That wasn't the case when he was on his iPad for extended periods of time. So my suggestion is, it's fine to give them gadget time, but I'm just looking at the time here, sorry. Okay, so it's fine to give them gadgets and things, but limit the time, because otherwise, after a few days, things start to get really difficult in the house, especially if you can't get to go out and have other spaces to socialize and vent and things like that. Okay. Just a few more slides. Let's see. Yes, Kakali, we will share the recorded version, and yes. Okay. I'm sorry, we're having to lose you. Okay, when shit hits the fan. So when there's an emergency, right? So if you're going to be at home with your children or child for a long period, and we don't know when, so this is the end of the month, and then it may extend, etc. And there's not much else to do, like go out and socialize and go out for a meal and things like that, then there will be times when things get out of hand. You lose it, or the child loses it. I'm saying this is pretty much, it's fine, right? So that's when SOS stuff kicks in. So some of the things that we've done when my children were younger is put music on really loud and just dance, right? It's great. It's a great way to lose energy. You're jumping up and down, you're having fun, you're laughing. That's fantastic. So if you feel like the energy in the house is starting to buzz a little bit and people's moods are getting, just put on some music and dance. You can do lots of other things too. So there's this jumping jacks, jumping up and down, running, spot running, shaking. Shaking is a great way to get rid of excess energy that's in the body. If things get really out of hand, so no feeling is a bad feeling. All feelings are great. right? There's no such thing as a bad feeling. All feelings are information for us that something is not fitting in our worlds or something is not fitting in the world of our child. So what we do about that is problematic sometimes. So we can't, if I feel like hitting my sister, for example, one of my kids feels like my son feels like hitting his sister, or other way around, hitting is not okay. But the feeling that I'm feeling so frustrated that this is how I feel like, this is what I want to do. So okay, go hit a pillow. Or screaming, like, screaming into a pillow is great too. So these are just to take the edge off the energy levels when they get out of hand. And it's really nice to talk about these options when the problem isn't current. So we talk about this, like how yesterday all of us got upset, and so maybe what can we do next time when that happens, because it's really difficult right now to contextualize it for the child. So it's not a good or a bad thing. They're not good or bad for having done that. It's just sometimes things get out of hand and we get frustrated and we can't contain ourselves. So maybe next time can we have some options around that. So then you can introduce, and I'm sure that they'll have some fun options as well. So yeah, including things like meditation, laying down on the floor and just breathing. I recommend things like EFT, tapping, journaling, napping, having comfort food, expressing gratitude, and so on as well. And there's lots of other things that all of you will be doing. And so I'm not sure how you're going to share, but maybe on the Facebook page or something, or in the comment section. Okay. This is the last one, flow. So I was, when this topic came up and I was preparing for it, I was listening to this podcast by another parent educator somewhere in the United States, and she was saying how they had snow days sometime, and her young children were locked up in their tiny New York apartment, and how she had to, so they're cooped up in this place, and the children on their dining table had created a tent or a house with blankets and sheets and things like that. And they spent 3-4 days just playing with that and just being in and out of it and being thoroughly engaged and stuff. So she just let it be. So the point that she was trying to make was just to let go and to allow things to flow sometimes, like allow the children to take the lead. And if the house is dirty and messy for a little while, or things are not the way you would like them to be, then just let go, right? Don't hold on to everything, trying to control everything, because that's just the setup for frustration for you, and sometimes thwarts the children, and then they get upset, and this whole cycle. So find the spaces and areas where you can let go and then just flow with what's happening. So that includes things like just maybe staying up late one night, or having like junk food for dinner, or once in a while. Okay, so can we find it in us to just be? So these were words that came to me: joy, connection, fun, and just being with the children, right? Enjoying them, sort of prioritizing not only our children but also our inner child and her needs or his needs. Can we enjoy our child? This time's not gonna come back like ever, where you're just having to be with your kids for this long time. So can you just make it fun? Can you plug into your creativity and your curiosity around what they're thinking and how they're feeling, and be silly? So these are some of the things that I wrote, right? Have fun, be silly, be curious, spend time, hugs and kisses, cuddles on the couch, movie nights, connecting for real, like not just being in each other's presence and company. When that happens, right? When you've spent the whole day together under the same roof, but you haven't connected with your child. So one of the things that I used to do when the children were little was I used to look into their eyes at the end of the day, and I would tell them how much, either verbally or through my body language, how much they meant to me, like how much I appreciated having them in my life and things like that. And that those connecting moments are really important. And so if you can find almost put it into your schedule, to do that once a day, at least, to have that heart to heart or person to person, soul to soul connection with your children. Is just so important. Okay, so I'm at the end of my. Hi, Siddharth. Good to have. Oh no, there's a streaming problem. Everybody's experiencing a streaming problem. I'm so sorry about that. We will fix this in our next, and I'm hoping that the recording was done properly so that at least everybody will have that available to them. So I just want to plug in over here before I go to questions, and I don't know if Kakali has any, Akanksha has any questions for me, but so next week on Thursday at the same time, so next Thursday at 7 p.m. we're going to do like maybe a half an hour, 40-minute session introducing a parent effectiveness training and what that's all about, because everything, all the ideas and things that I've shared today, everything that you do with your child, honestly, from the moment they're born, to the moment they leave their home, and even beyond that, everything depends on communication. So if you love your child you have to communicate to that to your child in some way, and the child has to feel it, right? If you want them to do certain things or certain chores around the house, or all that has to be communicated to them. And there's good communication, and then there's not so good communication, or as in P.E.T we say there's effective communication and there's ineffective communication. So when we speak effectively, when we're speaking in a way that keeps our needs and respect in mind, like I respect myself, I respect the other person, I respect my child's needs and her as an individual, and I respect the relationship, then the communication goes smoothly, and then there's an exchange between my child and I, right? So on the other hand, what we usually do is we're talking at the children constantly. We're telling them what to do, how to do it. We tell them we know better because we're older, and this is how things are, and they're done in this particular way. And so there's not really space usually for listening to the child and his opinions, thoughts, values, and they might be different from ours, and they may be better than ours even, but we really don't give any space for that. So the whole program is about, when my child is experiencing a problem, how do I listen so that they will speak to me? And then when I'm experiencing a problem, how do I speak to my child so they will listen and change out of consideration for my needs? And then when my child and I are having trouble, as in we're like fighting over something, or our